Thank you. I found a new background screen. I thought y'all might like that better than Clint staring at me with my stupid face.
What is that? Where is that?
I think that's the Matterhorn. I could be wrong.
No, that's nothing.
Not the Matterhorn. What is it?
Is it Mont Blanc?
Is what? Mont what? Mont Blanc? Well, at least that fits its look.
I like Captain McClintock Cuddlesworth.
He's consigned himself to an early death, sadly.
Consigned himself.
He's had medical problems for a long while, and about 2 weeks ago, he had a bit of discomfort over the night getting Addie and I up. Didn't have to go to the bathroom or anything. Could never figure it out. He wouldn't settle down, and then last week, Addie, end of last week, the week before this week, Addie noticed that his chest felt weird. So we took him to the vet, and the vet says, yeah, he's got a damaged valve in his heart. And it's never going to be, even if we could afford the operation, they couldn't fix it. And so you put your hand on his chest, and his normal heart rhythm is, and we got medicine to help mitigate it, but it ain't never going to get better. And at some point, in some night, in his kennel, we're going to hear him scream, and it's going to go, and that's it. So, y'all have to have a little more humor about it. It's a dog. It's okay. Called gallows humor. We can laugh in the face of death. Clint, it's fine. He'll have his life. It'll be okay. All right?
Do dogs go to heaven?
He's not. It's not like he was saved or unsaved, reprobate or elect. Okay, what's the name of that movie, by the way?
All dogs go to heaven.
That movie where the Disney, or not Disney, the Pixar movie with the emotions and everything in the kid's brain.
Inside Out.
Dogs go to heaven. What a moron. Lord, help me. Such a moron. Help me, Lord.
It's a real movie.
Of course you didn't. Oh my gosh. Lord, help me. All right. So as we begin this morning's study on the noetic effects of the fall, all right, talking about the effects, remember, nous is primarily a Greek word that refers to the mental faculties predominated by the intellect. Well, I don't think that's a fair biblical description of the faculties of the soul. There's actually not a prioritization. I want to give you a picture of that. But I wanted to reflect that when we talk about the noetic effects, we're not talking about something that there is fundamental disagreement on. There is no culture in the world, before or after today, that has ever disagreed with the nature of this picture. Anyone know the names of these various characters? Yeah, this is a Pixar movie about a kid learning to control their emotions, their feelings, their thinking. So which one is the intellect? That's easy. She looks like one of the women in the Scooby-Doo series who's the brainiac. Wearing the glasses. Come on. That's a sign of the intellect. In fact, Cambodia, when Khmer Rouge Pol Pot was killing off a westernized people, they literally looked for anyone who was wearing glasses because they tended to be college educated, and they killed them. Okay, so yeah, that's the intelligent one. Who's the flirt one? Who's the guided by her aesthetics, her desires for attention?
Green hair.
The green girl, right? Who's the emotionally fearful one? The purple dude, okay? He's bald-headed. It's not technically true. Most bald-headed guys aren't really afraid of much, okay? That's why they're bald, all right? They burned off their hair being upset all the time. Okay, so, and who's the otherwise ordinary stable one? The blue-haired girl, well, there's two blue-haired girls. The bug-eyed, I can't believe I'm watching this person, right? The lack of credulity, it's incredible what I'm saying. Who's the angry dude? Okay? So it is interesting, you know, unless we assign to the blonde-skinned girl, okay, the faculty of the will, right? You could say that you have two different emotions, both men. Very interesting cultural statement there. And then intellect, a woman. The reasonable decision maker, a woman. And then the flirt, a woman. Very interesting choices here. But, you know, 5 different characters, 4 different faculty descriptions. Okay? You with me so far? I just wanted to begin that to show you that the description I've given you, hold on. I gotta turn it off. First I was hot and now I'm cold. Yes, I'm not allowed to see you. And I'm not menopausal either. So, you know, menopausal. Yes. Yes. All right. So I just wanted to give you that description. I want you to keep this in mind because as we're going through all these descriptions, it's easy to go, well, this is the Christian view. Okay? And what I'm going to argue is, no, it is the view of reality, and there's just degrees to which your eyesight is defective. You go to the doctor, right? He goes, okay, for some of us it's 1 or 2. Which one's clearer? 1 or 2? 1 or 2. Different lenses they put in front of you, right? For some of us, it's 25 or 26. 25 or 26. That's someone who's almost blind. All right? Just a joke. All right? But there's degrees of faculty blindness. There's degrees of noetic blindness. And it's not just a blindness it's not the physical blindness or the hearing blindness, it's the blindness of the soul's ability. Come on in, Francis. It's the blindness of the soul. Honey, if we ever have 200 people sitting here, I will never do that to you when you come in. I promise. Okay? It's only now. It's not going to hurt anyone's feelings. So we're talking about the souls. We use blindness. We use deafness as metaphors, synecdoches, a part for the whole. That's a technical term for you, okay? A grammar term. I'm a genius at grammar. Ask me any grammar question, and I'll tell you how to do it wrong. Just by definition. I'm not really good at grammar at all. But I've learned the hard way. Hey, that word sounds like it's describing a whole lot of other words. What do we call that? And then you fumble around, okay, and that's called a synecdoche. If the various computer searches ever totaled up how many times I've had to remind what a synecdoche is, there would be in parentheses behind it, moron, okay? As a way of telling me, remember this. All right, so a part for the whole, okay? So the Bible often has a part for the whole. What tends to be, do you think, the most common experience of the faculty souls? The intellect, the emotions, the desires, or the will? Which seems to be the most common that occurs to us? Not the most common in function, because they're all present in all functioning. Which seems to be the most present? What?
The will?
No, not at all. Sorry, I love you, but no, not the will. Okay, I'm glad you said it, because now I can have fun, all right? Not the will, because the will is the most instinctive. You don't sit there and go, right, left 2 times. We don't do that. We just turn right or left. It's the most instinctive. You see what I'm saying? What's the most consciously, as we reflect on our own soul, what do we would say that is most common? We do what? We what?
Emote.
No, no, and we're not talking about women.
Desire.
No, again, that's instinctive. We don't sit there until we've been discipled and trained and go, what are my desires here? What will make me happiest? What's my conscious? I mean, even when we're going, gosh, what's right or wrong? You know, that's a function of the desire, right? We don't really, it's more instinctive than that. Which one do we, when someone says to you, when someone says to you, after you've done something, okay, the fruits of a process of your faculties of your soul, what were you? What? Thinking. Yeah. And indeed, that's what you see in the Bible. The Bible will most commonly talk about thinking. Does it talk about our emotions? It certainly does. Does it talk about our desires? It certainly does. Does it talk about our will? It certainly does. And it tends to think that our thinking is the most common characteristic. Doesn't mean it's the dominant one, all right? And all that's going to be relevant here in a minute. And I'm going to connect this to, that's interesting, okay? That was a cow whose number is 67. I opened the wrong folder there, sorry guys. You were supposed to be open. Why'd you close? So here's where we started, okay? This is part of our looking at covenants. Well, I want to do the best I can to introduce how this is connected to covenants today, because we're not going to get very far in my notes, okay? By the way, if any of you ever want a copy of the notes, you're more than welcome to email me, and I will send you copies, okay? So noetic effects, all right, the very first scripture which has an interaction with man and woman in which they have demonstrated noetic effects of the fall. I heard you in the garden and I was naked, so I hid myself. Now note, how are they hiding themselves in the garden from God? Because they're naked. They're hiding behind a bush. Okay? Well, why did they make leaves for covering? Because they're trying to hide their nakedness from each other. Why are they hiding their nakedness from each other? Because they're feeling shame for the very first time. Emotion. They're thinking about what must be the source of this shame. And for some, you ready? Not irrational, they're not crazy, but defective functioning of rationality. For some defective thinking, intellectual process, they correlate a second before naked, but each other no big deal. Now all of a sudden this is shameful, whatever that is. Gotta fix that. Use the intellect to come up with leaves. Right? Adam, this isn't really covering. Here, let me go kill this fox. Well, give me 4 or 5 of them. I mean, you know, they haven't gotten to that point yet. All right? But so you've got emotion, you've got intellect. Well, why are they doing this? Because they want to fix their feeling of shame. It is wrong to feel shame. I fix shame by fixing what's wrong with me. Okay? That's all trying to address a decision, ready? That comes out of the conscience, the desires. What's going to make me happy? Not being shameful. Why am I shameful? Because I'm naked in front of her. What am I going to do about that? I'm going to cover myself with leaves. All of that is trying to satisfy the conscience choice. If I can fix and get rid of shame, emotions will calm down, everyone will be happy, and then there's the, okay, Will, all 3 of them together, this is the plan. Let's go grab some leaves.
Were they ashamed because they were from each other naked, or because they were uncovered, their sins were uncovered in front of God?
They're hiding behind the bush because they feel shame before God. they're hiding behind leaves because they're feeling shame before each other. Both are factors. You feel guilt towards God when you break his law. Shame is the expression of that guilt. And it's ordinarily with reference to each other because we can't see God. We worry about the opinions of others because we feel guilty about something because we're dealing with shame. They're intimately connected, right? But both are present in the garden situation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made leaves. They would have just hid behind the bushes. All right, so a consequence of rebellion, man's soulish faculties, his intellect, emotions, desires, and will have been corrupted by his enslavement to Satan, sin, and death. All right? You got a little bit of a definition there, a little bit of description, okay? This is something I've already gone over, so I'm not going to slow down here very much. Review those notes. By the way, you're encouraged to do that. Any notes I have on the page that I don't mention are still valuable for you to review over, to look at, to contemplate and consider. All right? Now here I tried to create a relational functioning diagram for you. This is one of the reasons why I just went over inside-out pictures. Right? So here you've got basically 4 concentric circles. All right? So the body is absolutely sacrosanct from the world. That's why there is a solid line between the body and the world. But the soul is a mutual part of the being of man. We're body and soul. Okay? It's not really fair to say we're soul in body. You can't physically locate the soul. What you can locate is the interaction of the body and the soul together. So what you've got in front of you is a 2-part being, body and soul. All right? That's that tight dotted line. And then within the soul, you've got 4 functional components. Now, I've tried to illustrate the coordinated interaction. And at first I was going to draw arrows and lines. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. Okay, let's just use circles, sets. Right? And so there's this open, more base dotted line. Okay? And so what's going on there is the intellect, the emotion, and the desires are all processing the data being fed to it by the will. The will is the one that says, hey, we just implemented that. How do you like it? Make you happy? You think that worked? Do you think that's better for us? Okay? The feedback. Now, some might argue, well, the feedback is direct from the body to the soul. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. All right? We can quibble on that one. But when it comes to making the decision to be taken, the intellect, the emotions, and the desire all working together to come up with, what everyone agrees with. And then the will, its responsibility is to enact that in the body. Okay? It's like, imagine you're on Star Trek, Next Generation. You're having your council meeting, right? This is a weak one because Captain Picard's in charge of everything, right? But his famous words, make it so, right? That's what the will is doing to the body, all right? Are you with me so far? Okay? So compare that to the inside-out image I just gave you. You can see that the secular world even thinks this way, okay? If you go look in any pagan religious system and you look at their pantheon of gods, they're the god of, the god of, the god of, and it's always the god of this activity and the god of this emotion, this intellectual, this conscious desire, choice. All those different things, like Diana. She is the great huntress, and she's also the goddess of, anyone know? No? Death, you say? Love? Love. Yeah, that's pretty good. But we should define that biblically. The goddess of lust. Okay? So the reason I say goddess of lust is that, love can be defined as just emotion. But when love interacts with desire, it becomes what's going to make me happy. What's going to be right for me. Remember, we're talking about a desire, a conscience that's twisted from the biblical right and wrong. And at the end of the day, I can tell you that's not biblically right, that's biblically wrong. It's going to hurt you. It's not until you hear it's going to hurt you if you're not saved that you're going to pay attention. Okay? So it's been corrupted. The conscience, the desire, is corrupted. Doesn't mean we're cut off from right versus wrong as a principle. It means that our measuring of that is not merely defective, but it's defective in a particular direction. It's defective in replacing God as the standard, what's right or wrong for him, to what's right or wrong for me. And what is the original sin? I want to replace God. This all makes sense. Okay?
So are the emotions, intellect and desire only driving the will, or are
No. It's a coordinated working together. The only reason I put the will outside that circle was to demonstrate that there is an immediacy of connection between the body and the will. That's not necessarily there between the desires and the intellect and the emotions. And you should not think about these things as compartmentalized. They're all four functions of the same thing, the soul.
But I've encountered people who are driven by their emotions.
Of course, more emotionally
Driven by
driven.
desire.
And it's, more emotionally driven, okay? And it's not that they don't have intellectual functioning. It's defective. It's not that they don't have conscience desire functioning. It's that it's defective. It's not that they don't have a will functioning. It's defective. Okay? So you can say, well, one of these seems to be more of a priority than others. But we must not go to saying that one dominates the others, or one's in charge of the others, or one's so present that the others just simply don't exist. The craziest thing in the world is this, okay? Take the person who's, quote, the craziest. How do we assess their craziness? Well, based on what we consider to be rational. Now, remember I talked about degrees. 1 degree off the truth, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Well, in some contexts, approximation, okay? For the bank, 2 plus 2, well, it equals 4.01. That might actually work, okay? There was the second Superman movie, actually had, what's his name? Richard Pryor was the genius who came up with, take all the fractions of the rounding up that the banks do and all the electronic transfers and put that all in one account. He got millions of dollars overnight that then supported Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, right?
There was actually a college student who did that and got caught.
But, well, you know, all fantasy is based in fact, which is a emphasis on the point I'm trying to make. Even the most quote-unquote irrational is not unrational. That's important for us to remember. When we're talking about the noetic effects, we're not talking about unintellectual, unemotional. One of my favorites is social pathology, right? No, excuse me, sociopaths. It's one of my favorites, okay? Well, they are not emotionally driven. Oh, yes, they are. They're not consciously desire driven. Oh, yes, they are. They're not intellectually driven. Oh, they tend to be geniuses. Well, what's their problem? Well, they're so focused on what makes me happy, what's right for me. Their desire is their priority. And so the other faculties of the soul are oriented towards affecting that. That's the definition of what a sociopath is. They're so selfish that they're dangerous to everyone else. But they're not unrational, unemotional, unconscious. They're defective. And that's probably an excellent example of what we mean by the noetic effects. Does that make sense?
They're unbalanced.
Not unbalanced. Okay? Because then that suggests that there is a perfect balance of these things. little of this, little of that. Not, no, there's right or wrong of these things. Okay? You ready? The biblical word would be pure or impure. How pure is pure? Use the percentage measurement. 100%. How impure is impure? The answer is less than 100%.
99999.
No, that's not. No, that's just less than. That's not by definition impure. Impure is anything less than 100%.
Binary solution.
Okay? Yes.
So, no matter the condition of the person, there exists nobody that is anything. It's just that they are a certain degree.
Experiencing degrees of the defect of the noetic effects of the fall. Exactly
a certain
right.
amount of twistedness.
A certain amount of, Bible's word would be pollution.
Yeah.
Pollution of the soul. Does this help? When we're talking about noetic effects. Now, this is all related to covenant. I'm going to do some, again, more reviewing. I'm not getting very far today. I'm sorry. Okay? All right? And here's the basic idea. All right? All this happens because you have broken your covenant with God, covenant of works, and He has defined that the result of breaking the covenant of works is, you ready? Living under the rule and reign of death and sin and Satan until that day when He takes everything, including death, casts them in the final place of perpetual, eternal torment, and casts them away from everyone else's presence. You look at Revelation 21 and 20. Where's hell? It's never mentioned again. It'll never be in view. Oh, it'll be an intellectual thing we remember. It'll be an emotional, you ready? In eternity, okay? Right? It'll be an emotional, it'll be a moment of desirous praise. Oh, praise you, Jesus. Right? But it won't ever be an ability to will to go there. I mean, if I could say it this way, please don't be upset at me when I say this language. Okay? Because we all feel this and think this. We all express degrees of vengeance, disobeying and sinning against God. Okay? So it's appropriate to say that this language is inappropriate. Well, it's inappropriate because the feeling is inappropriate, the thinking is inappropriate, the desire is inappropriate. And that's a level of sin that don't matter how much you control the will and don't say it. You're still thinking, feeling, and desiring it sometimes. In eternity, with us being perfected, there will be no more thinking, feeling, desiring, or choosing to say the words go to the hockey game. Some of you are going, the hockey game. Well, in the Northeast, that's what we say when we don't want to use that word. We go, HE double hockey sticks. Got it? Okay?
So is the new creation part of eternity? Or?
I'm sorry, what?
Is the new creation. God's going to do away with all this.
Right.
It's all going to burn. And I
Yeah.
got some interesting perspective on that. I'll tell you later. But He's going to put a new creation in place.
Right. A merged one realm, heaven and earth together, the spiritual and the material, one location. Okay? Doesn't mean the inanimate is going to be visible. Souls. Okay? Angels will be. Yeah. God will be. All right?
We won't be able to do that.
Well, you will. You'll be perfect. It is only an imperfect person that cannot withstand the sight of perfect God.
So where do you think hell will be?
Well, that's just it. It will be, by definition, nowhere. Now, you ready? Now, Dave, that's one of those logical things of, we're still going to be with the Trinity. One God, three persons. We're still going to be there. There's going to be a degree of not incomprehensibility, but not even uncomprehensibility, just a comprehensibility that's limited to our nature. We will have perfect comprehensibility up to the degree of our nature's ability to, but there will be things about God and His limitlessness We'll never fully understand his love. But what we do understand about his love will be fully perfect for us, according to our nature.
I like C.S. Lewis's view.
A little louder for me.
C.S. Lewis said his view of color is infinitesimally small.
Yes. Yes.
He said what?
It was infinitesimally small.
Okay, so last week we looked at this Sunday school outline here. You ready? This is what we're going to look at. All right, we've looked at God's two wills, the secret and decretive, the prescriptive or revealed. Okay? And the secret, the decretive, is everything in detail throughout all eternity, without sinfulness in his part because he's perfect. And then the prescriptive is what he's told us to do. Okay? And that is fundamentally important to us in understanding how the covenant of works and the covenant of grace work. The core of the prescriptive will is the moral law. What's another word for the moral law? Little louder. No. Sorry, honey. Good guess. I love when you guess and I go, no. And you just roll with it. That's fantastic. I don't mean anything personal. What?
10 Commandments?
10 Commandments. There you go. Okay? Sean redeeming himself. He's back to 0. Okay. The 10 Commandments. The moral law. Okay. What's another phrase for the 10 Commandments? All right, that was cute, whoever just said that. Jenny. Jenny back there sitting there with a little smile going,
She really did read there.
no. The two, not tablets, although that's good. The two what?
Great commandments.
Oh gosh, you're a step ahead of me. Well done. I was going to say the two tables, but that's what I was trying to. Shorter. We're playing whatever it's called, charades.
2 tables?
Yeah, it's called the two tables of the law. Table 1, table 2. 2 tablets is referring to it written on Sinai. That might not be why it was on 2 tablets. It may be, probably, is more like, here's a copy for you, here's a copy for me. We're in covenant together. Okay? But then what is the sum of the moral law in its 2 tables? Well, the first table talks about how to
Love God.
love God. And the second table talks about how to
Love others.
love man. Now watch how these work together. You're going to get to this. We're going to be preaching on Galatians 5, 6 soon. Okay? Very important. Okay? The sum of the whole law, Paul says there, is to love others as you love yourself. Okay? He doesn't mean the first table is non-existent. He's meaning that the first table is best expressed by fulfilling the second table. Okay? All right? But just stop for a second and think. He's thinking about loving God. Is he just talking about having good feelings? The emotion? Well, of course not. He's talking about thinking the right things about God. Not merely understanding it. This is fascinating. When I was in seminary the first time, I realized that one of the best exegetical works, I asked a couple professors to agree with this or disagree with this and change me, and everyone agrees ever since I've ever said it. There is an international critical commentary series written around the turn of the 19th to 20th century. And this was the best research at the time of how Hebrew works and Greek works. And this is at the end of about 400 years of recapturing these languages and applying the best linguistic skills to understanding the nature of chart. We've just lived through another 100+ year period, by the way, where that's advanced even more dramatically. I mean, guys who go to seminary today, Graham, guys who go to seminary today are getting way more than even I got at one of the best seminaries in the world. So it's just fascinating. But this series was written by the people who could literally the best tell you, even to this day, you can still read it. They can tell you what the author of a particular book is saying in a particular section. What is his purpose? Okay? Why he is teaching you this? And what's the goal that the author has in view? The one characteristic, you got to remember this now, going to come up in the future. They just don't believe it's true. That is critical to where we're going in this section. All right? The noetic effects of the fall. Well, that's exactly what's going on here. You're in covenant with God. The noetic effects has meant that you intuitively live by the covenant of works or the covenant of grace, based on the decreed will of God in the covenant of redemption. Okay? They all three work. And the primary issue of the noetic effects of the fall is that it is a subcategory of the judicial judgment for breaking the covenant of works. The day you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. Sounded like the kid back there said it. You will surely die. Okay? They didn't physically die right away, but they clearly did die in terms of the relationship with God. They hid themselves. Well, what is that signifying? Well, that death is not merely a one and done. It is a way of existence.
It's separation from God.
It's separation from God. And God is the source of life. And he is the best source of life, correct? Wrong. Holy, there you go. Okay, won't hold that one against you. I'll have to give that to you. Okay, you were saying it while I was getting ready to push it. All right, he's the only source of life. If you cut yourself off from the source of life, what are you choosing? Existence of death. Well, what does death have in view? Well, in this period of time, it has the rule of one who usurped the covenant of works from Adam. And it has the beginnings of the judicial consequences of eternal existence in death. Hell, what do we call those beginning consequences in our shorter catechism? The blank of this life. Miseries! Excellent. A couple of you have threw it out there. That's right. It's miseries. Okay? Addie and I just watched a 1984's BBC miniseries, like 6 episodes, with Daniel Day-Lewis as the main actor. And he was this pleasant, nice guy. If you ever watched Danny Day-Lewis, Last of the Mohicans, anyone? Okay? All right? You're like, that guy's an intense actor. Yeah, well, in this one, he was the sweetheart who was taking everyone else's garbage through the whole series. And in the very last scene, it turns out he's got trichinosis poisoning. All right? And he's a doctor. And that morning, he finally is coming around, and the woman who he finally has fallen in love with, and he really wants to marry her, and he was taken away from her and now brought back to her, and he wakes up and he sees her, and she's opening the curtains in his sick room, and he's like, he calls her name, Rachel. Yes, he sounds normal. He's not hallucinating anymore, right? He's not delirium, and she's got a little bit of hope. She's a nurse. Her dad was the doctor in the town, and he took over the practice from her dad, and and I mean, everything about this thing. Addie's like, I'm going to watch the last of my show. Last night. We had 2 episodes to go, so I had to turn it back on, right? She's normally not like that, guys. And we're watching this thing, and we're going, I had this shtick of knowing what's going to happen next in most stories, and I can literally throw the lines out that the person says. It's fun, all right? Okay? Addie has this better ability. Oh no! Blah, 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 going to happen. Almost always, over the next 2 hours, that's what happens. So, both of us were caught off guard with this one. He sees her. Oh, he's going to survive. Her look, and he calls her over, and we both missed it. We had already seen it in this show. I've experienced this as a pastor. Okay? She comes over to him. Rachel, yes? I love you. When she leans down, I love you too. She kisses him on the cheek. She lays her head next to him on his face and his shoulder. You see him get comfortable and just go to sleep. Okay, great. He's going to get better. And then a few minutes later, his friend, another doctor in town, wakes up from sitting at the table downstairs, worrying about him all night. He's like, I got to check the patient. He gets up, he goes upstairs. And he looks at him. Yeah, puts his finger on that artery. He did. And he pulls the sheet up over his face. And then they pan over to Rachel. And Rachel's like this. And I mean, that actress was just phenomenal. And it's ended. And Addie and I are like, That was fantastic. I hated that ending. That's a real story, right? Why is it a real story? Because it reflects the reality of life under death, miseries, guys, miseries. And the covenant of grace comes in as that which fixed that. Now, the pneumatic effects might be an expression of life under death. It is. Okay? I try to say existence under death because, when you're in this kind of conversation, you're talking about life versus death. Both have existence. By the way, do the dead raised on the day of judgment, does everyone get an eternal body and eternal soul? There's a big debate among evangelicals, and I think it's heterodox at least. Some version of it's a heresy, where after a period of time, those in hell cease to exist, annihilationism. It's not what the Bible teaches. Okay? It is a well-intended thought and hope, but it denigrates the degree of sin against God. Does that make sense, guys? All right? Let alone it imputes to something in the Bible that's not there. The Bible teaches the opposite, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Now, that's the place where it's outer darkness and the weeping of gnashing and teeth. What's the emphasis of the worm that doesn't die? Well, there's an eternal body there that has some food all the time. The fire's not quenched. What is that? Well, there's an eternal soul there. There's always misery.
So when God in Genesis says, you surely will die, he's not talking about an ending, he's talking about a change.
He's talking about a change in, watch this, existence due to a change in covenantal relationship. That is critical. Garrett.
Is that why a lot of if we look to Deuteronomy, elsewhere it talks about punishments for the law, the word that uses cut off.
Yes.
Instead of punishment,
Yes. Excellent catch.
cut off.
You're cut off from the covenant of grace promises under the Mosaic administration of the covenant of grace. You're cut off from the promises of life. Okay? You're not a part of this community anymore. Well, what does that mean? Well, you're in the other community. Well, what other community? The one that had no hope of the perfections of a renewal of eternal life, glorified life, perfect in every way, in a perfect creation in every way. You're cut off. That's very good. And what was the sign of that? This is where we get into the power of signs and seals, guys. What was the sign of being cut off? It was the entry point into the Mosaic covenant. Circumcision, which has a prior, okay? Why? Why is it given to Abraham? Why are sacraments given by God? To picture for his people their new relationship with the covenant of grace. What did circumcision picture to Abraham? Now, maturity is in view here, okay? Okay? The characteristics of the sign, the symbol, okay, they metaphorically picture the covenantal promise. What was the covenantal promise to Abraham? Descendants as many as the sands and stars, okay? People. What else did it include? Well, I'm sorry, a little louder? Land, okay? Place. People and place. A promised land, okay? What else did it include? One more P word. If any of you get this, I'll be impressed. So don't worry if you guess and I go, no.
Perpetual.
Oh my gosh, everyone bow down to Dave. Perpetuity, right? What did the covenant of grace require? Personal, perfect, perpetuity, perpetual obedience on the inside and the outside. What does the covenant of grace give? It gives a people a place where it's filled with people who are personally perfect, inside, outside, perpetually, right? Perfect, right? I mean, you just pile these sixes. Those P's. Those are 6 of them right there. Okay. All right. So, I know. I see it. Thank you. The promises to Abraham, the covenant of grace promise to Abraham. How are they pictured in the circumcision? I'm not going to ask questions. I'm just going to explain it to you. His problem was he was never going to have any descendants. No descendants, no people. No people, no need for a place. No need for a place, no need for perpetuity. He needs to have descendants. Well, if you're going to have descendants, you've got to have working seed and working eggs. Now, we're never told anything about Sarah being infertile. We are shown something about Abraham's seed. It worked at one time. Hagar, Ishmael, okay? So, in a sense, you ready? In circumcision, there's one Greek translation of a word of a phrase in Hebrew about the fruit trees that's very interesting. It talks about we have the word catharsis, cathartic, a cutting away of dead in order to cleanse so that new life can grow. Well, that's exactly what circumcision is. It's cutting off of dead skin on the branch of the tree so that new seeds of life in the fruit can grow. Now again, symbolism, you don't take it too far, that's just enough. We do circumcise fruit trees in order to cut off the impure to promote purity that will cause life to grow. New fruits, right? Okay, this is exactly what's pictured in circumcision. So here's the important point, to go back to Garrett's cutting off question, if you break the covenant with Moses. Okay? The cutting off pictured in circumcision, what is that a promise of?
Being cut off from death.
Being cut off from death. Being cut off from the consequences of the broken covenant of works and entered into a new covenant. Now we no longer have circumcision. Why? Because one was cut off who never deserved to be cut off from the covenant of grace. And when he rose from the dead, he provides for his people his personal, perfect, in perpetuity obedience, so that he now is the father of the people, the place, and their perpetuity in the covenant of grace. In other words, what God gives us is not a conditional covenant of grace, guys. He gives us a completed covenant of grace. And so what do we have? The water that washes you clean once and for all from that which would keep you out. The sustenance that enables you through this life to be secure on your journey to the final place. All covenantal. All grounded in the nature of, you're going to love this one, the way things really are. And dealing with noetic effects while we're doing it up front, deep drive on this, because a significant part of the Christian life is first having our noetic eyesight, hearing, smelling, tasting, to use the physical things, corrected. So that we see, think, feel, desire, choose more consistently with the way things really are for us who already in the kingdom. Not will be, already are.
Isn't it interesting the symbolism between the elements too? You have the cutting away of death, which actually is, there's medical evidence that that's a healthier way of life, circumcision.
Well,
Now,
that's
when
a
you get into
little
that,
bit debated.
You're cutting away from death, and then when Christ dies, we celebrate his granting of life to us, using elements that represent his body and his blood, but also provide us with nourishment and growth.
Well, his cutting away becomes our cutting away.
Yeah.
And circumcision was but a promise that one day you would experience that cutting away through someone else. That's all it is. That's what the Passover lamb was about. A promise that one day there would be a sacrifice for you, through which you would have perpetual new life. That's what Hebrews, when it's talking about we no longer have to do all the sacrifices because we have a sufficient sacrifice. All right, we got to stop. I'm way over time. Thank you for your patience. Let me pray. Jesus, deepen our understanding of these things so that we might live in our covenant promises. In Christ's name, amen. All right, a few minutes, and we'll all join for worship together.
So how far did you get that you intended to